Dobrodošli na EOSC nacionalni tripartitni sastanak. Ja sam Slaven Mihaljević. So today we have a program which is divided in three sessions. And in the first session we will have more introductory talks about the EOSC and plans for EOSC from the European Commission, from the steering board and from the Ministry of Science and Education in Croatia. And then after a short break we will present several cases, let's call them cases, from Croatia, from the researchers' side. We have a number of researchers here who will present their work and their experience with open science. And then the last session will have some more talks about the position of Croatian Science Foundation, how they are, what they are doing with respect to open science. And then for the closing we will have a panel session, which I would call it high-level panel session, in which we will discuss the situation, the current situation with open science in Croatia and the plans that we have for the near future. So, since we are a little bit late, I will not talk too much. I would like to introduce our first speaker today, which is also the host of this event, Ivan Marić, director of Srce. So, Ivan, please.
Thank you, Slaven. Good morning, all. Well, I'm here just in the first session to say welcome to all of you. As Slaven explained, today we will talk about EOSC, but more we will discuss about open science in Croatia, and then to see how these fit into the EOSC. Now, EOSC idea, vision of EOSC made in 2016 by European Commission is a part of European Cloud Initiative. And this is the part of digital single market, which will be expressed later, I think, by the Commission. And the whole idea, this morning, George's speech also explained the vision and the mission of EOSC. Now, how I see it, basically, because I was involved in 2016, but more earlier than 2016, the work of ERG, when we have this white paper e-commons created, and basically it's all about e-commons and many other e-infrastructure activities that were through the framework programs, through the Horizon programs, etc., ended here. So this is just the evolution of what we are doing in the Europe. And how this evolution is done in a European style. Well, it's very unique, I would say, and that's why I love European style. It's basically like we have countries, we have nations, we have research communities, and we are not dictating one thing, but we are making layers. And this is one layer. This is Croatian way. This is Croatia. And we will discuss how we will doing and how we make our kinetic energy to making the big wave of EOSC. EOSC is just a big wave, and if all of us are making this wave, then we will be bigger and stronger. And this morning you heard Giorgio. It's not just one lake that we are making the wave. It's more lakes or data spaces in Europe that we have to transfer this kinetic energy from EOSC, which is usually the first one. That's the role of science and academic community in each country in Europe, is basically to have start something to promote this, and then these things should go in other sector. And that's how we will treat also the EOSC, and that's how we will treat Croatian Open Science Cloud Initiative. Our way, Croatian way, I will explain later in my speak. That's what we are doing. Srce is appointed by Ministry of Science as mandated organization in 2019, I think, or earlier, and we are the partner in EOSC efforts so far as appointed member mandated organization by Ministry. In that respect, I will stop now and take a floor to another. Thank you very much, and I think that you will enjoy today. Be open and just discuss the issues that we are having problems in Croatia. They will listen.
Thank you, Ivan. I forgot to mention that this event is being recorded and broadcasted on YouTube channel of Srce, so I believe that some people from outside of Croatia are also watching. Okay, so the next speaker, I invite Hrvoje Meštrić, who is the Director General of the Directorate for Science and Technology at the Ministry of Science and Technology, to tell us a little bit of something about the Ministry's position on open science. So, Hrvoje.
Thank you. On behalf of the Ministry of Science and Education, I welcome you all warmly and thank you for Srce and colleagues from Srce for organizing this meeting, and the European Commission for participating. So we in Ministry of Science, we believe that open science is a key topic, not only on a national or EU level, but also globally. And I will just shortly share our views and policies with you. So we know that open science has this crucial role now in playing in boosting impact, quality, transparency, integrity of research, and it increases the quality and impact of science in general. But it fosters reproducibility, interdisciplinarity, and all this together goes hand in hand with the evolution of new research assessment systems in Europe that is taking place right now. And through better sharing of resources, science is more efficient, more reliable, and can be better verified and more responsive to society needs. And Croatia as country, we recognize the importance of open science, and thus we supported the Council conclusions on research assessment and implementation of open science that were adopted in Luxembourg. And in the new European research area, open science, there is one action that were proposed, and that focuses on open sharing of knowledge and reuse of research outputs, and it is one of the action where Croatia is actively participating in. Additionally, in the legal and strategic documents, we continually include open science principles. Firstly, National Development Strategy 2030, one of the priorities for the implementation of policies in the field of science and technology is strengthening scientific excellence and encouraging open science by investing in research infrastructure and internationally relevant research projects. Open science is also one of the key principles of scientific research as stipulated in new Act on Higher Education and Science we adopted last year. and through this reform, we started with this act. We also will also encourage institutions in Croatia by implementing performance-based agreement to include open science principles within their institutional policies. So, as I mentioned, this is an important part of all our reforms, institutional financing, but also the project financing, and Croatian Science Foundation and other agencies who invest in competitive projects will link the open science principles within. So all researchers in Croatia are encouraged and assisted to share their data. They have free of charge access to the necessary infrastructure. All projects financed under EU funds. Ministry gives the financial support for researchers for cost of dissemination of research results, publishing, and all similar costs. And what is important to mention, the Ministry of Science since long ago provides financial support to scientific journals, and since 2016, in order for a scientific journal to receive financial support, it must be available free of charge on the Croatian Scientific Journals portal, which is something also done and executed by Srce. The challenge is to make incentives and support openness in science while paying attention to specific challenges in each scientific discipline. So we generally believe that promotion of open science principles for all publicly funded research and ensuring adequate infrastructure, and this will certainly increase impact. And Srce is here our main partner. As Ivan said, we gave the mandate to lead this on behalf of the Croatia to lead the EOSC, and Srce implements all that projects and several digital archives and the data services to support open science. Okay, and I think in afternoon our colleagues from the National Open Science Cloud Initiative will speak more about the initiative, and this initiative we are now in the developing the plan of the National Plan for Open Science, and I think it will start in implementation soon. So thank you very much for attention.
Thank you very much, Hrvoje. I have to stress the support of the ministry. They are very supportive in all our efforts to promote open science. And as Hrvoje said, today we will be promoting or presenting the last version of the National Plan for Open Science, which is the result of a long time initiative that was initiated by the ministry and Srce. So thank you very much for all the support that you have given us so far. And now in the program, it says that Ana Papagopoulou should join us, but as far as I know, she is at the meeting, so her colleague, Dejan Dvoršek, Deputy of Open Science Deputy Head of Open Science Unit at DG Research and Technology, will be joining us by Zoom, I believe. Oh, Dan, you are here. Thank you very much for joining us. Do you hear us?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so please, the floor is yours.
Hvala lepa. Dobro jutro, lep pozdrav v Zagreb. Good morning and greetings to Zagreb. First, let me excuse the director, Ana Papagopoulou, who, due to the last-minute urgent engagement, couldn't join. But I will try to fill in that spot. Dear Director General of Srce, dear Dr. Ivan Maric, and dear members of Research and Innovation Community in Croatia, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to participate in this opening of this first EOSC National Tripartite in Croatia. Let me start by first congratulating the Ministry of Science and Education and also the University Computing Center in Zagreb, Srce, for their active role in shaping this important event, and even more generally in enabling open science in Croatia. As a matter of fact, for what I know, the open science seeds in Croatia have sprouted since quite a long time ago, 1997 or even earlier. An example of Crosby, and also other milestones have been reached over these years. One of the recent ones from 2021, the Memorandum of Understanding establishing the Croatian Open Science Cloud Initiative. And from our perspective, this is very important when we encourage such initiatives, because we believe this is essential to help connecting Croatian fair research data and related services into the EOSC Federation. And what I know even more is under the preparation, for example, CRORIS, which as a central hub, we believe it will play a major role to ensure open access to publicly funded research results, so-called Made in Croatia, and also coupled that with national legal framework on the handling of the data on Croatian research activities, which I believe will further amplify the success of this story. So we all know in a way that today's science is in a transition. And this transition does affect all aspects of our research cycle. So we are moving towards a culture, and we need to move towards a culture of openness, towards a culture of collaboration, where it incentivizes research quality, societal impact, but what is very important, public trust in science. This open science is progressively becoming the norm in the modern research, and it is a priority area for joint action in the Union, as agreed by the Member States and the Commission in the Pact for Research and Innovation in Europe. Now, this all represents a cultural shift, which will for sure transform, deeply transform, tomorrow's environment of today's young researchers. And for that reason, and many others obviously, open science practices and skills need to be enabled. They need to be taught, they need to be nurtured and rewarded. And this is one of the central objectives of European Open Science Cloud. Now, in this context, it's great, and I'm delighted that Croatia has really committed last year to several actions of ERA policy agenda of 2022-2024. For example, Action 1, which is really about open sharing of research knowledge and the reuse of research outputs, including the development of EOSC. And then also, very importantly, Action 3, as mentioned earlier, we're taking part in the process of reforming research assessment, which is essential to recognize the research practices, activities, and outputs, and really reward open science practices. The Commission, both the Commission and EOSC Association, are really committed to enable this open science. And in the context of EOSC European Partnership with dedicated Horizon Europe investments, they will reach €1 billion by 2027. Now, on the other hand, furthermore, through 2021 and 2022, what we have mentioned, Commission has facilitated also the drafting of an agreement of reforming research assessment. And so far, this agreement has been signed by 500 research organizations in more than 40 countries. I think this is an impressive number. And the Commission facilitated the preparation of the QUARA coalition for advanced research assessment. And that has kicked off 1st of December last year. On that side, I think it's important that we would very welcome a strong participation by Croatian research institutions and higher education organizations. It's a good timing now because coalition is preparing now the work groups to prioritize its activities. So it's a moment to be in. And with the interplay of these ERA actions and joint engagement at European, national, and institutional level, I hope and I believe that open science is really on a good track to become the norm in Europe and over the next decade. Now, this success really depends on the collective capacity to pool our efforts at all levels. We need to bring everybody together, and we all can be users, right, of EOSC, and we all can be providers to EOSC. We can all work on that. And this event, for example, is really great. It's really crucial. It's really an opportunity to inform about what EOSC is, to show the success stories, the best practices, the communities that have already sprouted, and also to build the national capacity, the national EOSC community collaborations, and then build strategies and roadmaps that will enforce this EOSC vision. The transformation of science is, in a way, really a common and shared responsibility. We will all work on that together, and it will require engagement across the community. And the researchers themselves are really the pivotal elements of these changes. And I have no doubt that today's event is a way to pave forward, the norm in the creation research area, and that converging into European research area. So, in my view, open science is not really a destination. It's more a journey. And it's an element of of culture of all of us. And it's a way it will affect generations ahead in a profound manner, in a way. And I wish actually all of you, the Croatian Scientific Educational Cloud, the members of Croatian Open Science Cloud, but everybody else on this train, to really enjoy this journey, enjoy the view. And thank you very much for the dedication onto this scientific openness. So thank you very much, hvala lijepa, and I give you the floor back.
Hvala Dejan, thank you very much Dejan for this kind words of support. And now we continue with a representative from European Commission, Dr. Michel Schupp, if I pronounce it correctly. He is a senior expert at the European Commission, team leader on the European Open Science Cloud in the Open Science unit at the DG Research and Innovation, with more than 25 years of experience in the Commission. Okay. So his specialty is implementation of open science policies in Europe and fair management of research data. So, Michel, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Slaven. Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to come for the first time in Zagreb, I must say, even after 25 years in the Commission. So never too late. And I hope I will come back on other occasions. So you have heard what Dejan has explained already. So I will go a little bit into more details. And I'd like to start by our main motivation. So allow me one slide on open science, because this is really what is driving our activities. As you know, science is in transition, and this is also due to the digital transition, which provides us with new tools and new ways to do science. Now, open science in itself, it's a paradigm change, so it takes time to be fully endorsed by the wider community. And it affects the way we perform research. It affects the way we share research knowledge. We evaluate research proposals and research project outcomes. It also affects the way we should train the researchers, the young generations of researchers. And it affects the way we reward, and we should reward the researchers all along their careers. In a nutshell, when I speak about sharing knowledge, we have three main things we want to achieve. Share knowledge as early as possible, share knowledge as openly as possible, and as fair as possible. And this should not happen only within your own discipline, because more and more we need interdisciplinary research. That's where we can address societal challenges. That's where we can also innovate at the frontier between disciplines. So we should allow communities to tap into data from other communities. That's really important. So what is the current status of practices by the researchers regarding the management of their data? This was a question we had in 21, and we decided in the Commission to go for a study of the European research data landscape. This has been done in the course of 2022 by a group of 4 organizations, so Visionary Analytics in Lithuania, Data Archiving and Network Services in the Netherlands, the Digital Curation Center in the UK, and the European Future Innovation Systems Center in Belgium. The aim was really to characterize the way data are produced, consumed by different disciplines. What's the level of maturity with respect to fair data practices? And what's the role of data repositories to help the researchers implementing fair principles? And we got quite a lot of responses. Actually, more than 15,000 researchers have contributed to this survey, coming from the EU 27 plus the UK plus several associated countries, and coming from the wide range of scientific disciplines. So probably colleagues of yours have contributed to this survey. The final reports are available, including on Zenodo, so you can have a look if you want. And I just would like to show 4 slides that provide key elements that will and should support our policies in the future. The first one regards the research data deposition. And we observed that a majority of researchers today are still using personal or local data storage solution. Only 40% of the researchers who have responded to the study mentioned that they store data in research data repositories. This is a very low number because we want data not to be acquired and used only once. These are public funded data. So we really would like to push further and practices towards data deposition in community or national or European research data repositories. The second thing is about the awareness of the FAIR principles. Here we noticed that only 1/3 of the respondents have never heard about the FAIR principles, never. And amongst those who have heard about it, some do not practice it or do not understand exactly what they mean. So this shows that we still have a huge amount of work to communicate, to disseminate, and to provide proper tools, easy to be used by the research community in order to verify their data. The third element is about fair practices. We can see that many researchers now across the era are accounted to data management plans. So that's already a good thing. But still other practices like providing a license to your data set, like using standardized vocabularies that are in practice into your community, like enriching your metadata to describe the provenance of your data. These things are not so much taken up by a wide community. And even more important, PIDs for data sets and for software and codes developed in the context of public funded research are only used by a minority. So, and this is really the starting point if we want to implement a fair agenda. We need persistent identifiers, otherwise you can even not found the data sets on the web. And the last slide I have on this study is about the barriers perceived by the researchers. This is quite well known. I mean, it's a question of time, it's a question of resources. It's also the issue of navigating legislations and understanding how to protect your own data sets. And finally, it's about a lack of recognition. So yes, we have to work more on the reward of the researchers who do verify their data. So on this basis, of course, there is a lot of things to be done. not only at European level, not only at national level, but also at institutional levels. And I think the success will depend on the capacity we can jointly develop to address these three layers together. At least to have a kick in this direction, we try to keep a high political momentum on open science. And this is a list of examples, recent examples of attempts we have to show open science and keep open science high on the political agenda. So it started in 2016 with a Council conclusions on the transition towards an open science system. And it went on in 2018, 2021, and 2022. I think several of these initiatives have been mentioned in the opening, the last one being the Council conclusions on research assessment and implementation of open science. So I would say, yes, we are doing well together with the member states on keeping open science really high on the agenda. Now, it's not because it's high on the agenda, and it's not because, and I'm happy to see this, many member states are implementing open science policies in their country, that we have done the whole work, because from a policy to an impact, there is a long way. We need activities, we need best practices to be implemented, and we need to monitor year after year progress and trends in implementing those policies. From the Commission side, I will not go through the whole slides. We concentrate on improving practices and developing enablers. Amongst the practices, we want to foster the management of research outputs, so not only publications, but also data, software, and codes, along the FAIR principles. And we want, in terms of enablers, to provide open research infrastructures. EOSC is one of them. It's a very big one. It's a system of systems. We need everybody on board. Open Research Europe is a more teeny one, but very useful one, which allows open access publishing for beneficiaries of our Horizon Europe program. Now, let's speak a little bit more about EOSC in particular. Where do we plan to be by 2027? I say 27 because this will be the end of Horizon Europe, and we have to think also what will come next. So with the current spread of activities we are launching together with the member states, we have three main objectives. The first one is about getting open science as the norm in European research. And we would like to be in a situation in 2027 where open science policies at various levels and investments are better aligned. We want to have a collection of best practices and use cases that we can share. Mutual learning is really key because every country actually is doing things in a different way. So we have a high diversity of practices and methods that can inspire each other. So we are working on a catalog of best practices of open science based on practices at the three layers, including the institutional level. The second objective is about, it's a long-term objective, it's the European contribution to a global web of fair data and services for science. We don't develop EOSC in isolation. We know that sooner or later this will have to be integrated with research commons developed in other parts of the world. So when we develop scientific or when we develop common protocols, APIs or guidelines for verification of data, it's very important to validate this into an international context. For the time being, we use the Research Data Alliance and its working groups and interest groups as a key tool to allow for this internationalization of practices. But we also collaborate with other international organizations related to the G7, related to the UN activities on open science, and so on. So EOSC is a contribution within your country at European level, but also beyond. I think I'm mixing what I say and the slides that you see. So sorry for that. I should better look at the screen, but okay, never mind. So let's go to the third objective, which is more infrastructure related. One thing are the open science policies, another thing is to work on data and their verification, but we need infrastructures. From the Commission side, we are now procuring the development, the operation and the maintenance for 3 years of an EU node that would provide a minimum EOSC, and that would provide a tool to allow for an EOSC federation. Because there are many existing research infrastructures that support open science. You have some in Croatia, being community infrastructure or national and even institutional infrastructures. The aim is really to allow for connectors between all these infrastructures within your country, within a community, but also at European level. So we do work on connectors, and this EU node is there through its core, we call it the EOS core, to provide the services required to allow for those connections. And we hope to be there, maybe not yet with thousands of nodes in the system of systems, but at least with the main ones from each country connected to the EOSC Federation by 2027. It's a huge task, but if we are all on the same page, I think we can do a big progress in the coming years. So that's the vision we have. How do we do this? Of course, I already said it, it's very much a community-based process, and it's a gradual implementation. We have to be patient, because this is extremely complex to connect all these very diverse infrastructure and services. So mutual alignment, mutual pooling of resources at the 3 levels I have mentioned are key. And for the time being, until 2027, we have 2 main governance tools. One is the European EOSC co-program partnership that is signed between the European Commission and the EOSC Association, and which has identified a strategic agenda for research until 2030, so a full decade of priorities being co-developed, co-designed, not only by the Commission, but also with the research community. And therefore, it is an invitation also to have Croatian research performing organization and funding organization joining the EOSC Association. The other tool we have is an EOSC tripartite governance, which has also been mentioned in this opening. We need to speak together. The Commission, the Member States, the associated countries, and the EOSC Association and its members. How do we do EOSC? We also find extremely important to have EOSC in the key European policy lines, and I'd like to mention 2 of them. One of them is the ERA policy agenda, which has been mentioned already, where the focus is on enabling the sharing of research knowledge and the reuse of research knowledge by secondary users. The other one is the European Strategy for Data, which has identified 10 sectoral data spaces, and EOSC is one of them. And I would say a quite major one compared to the other ones. So we have in front of us a very important policy activity, which is really to integrate EOSC as a sectoral data space itself for the researchers, but also to integrate this EOSC with the other sectoral data spaces. Because many data from, for instance, the Green Deal data space are objects for research. And vice versa, research data and researchers can contribute a lot in the implementation of other sectoral data spaces. So that's a very big ticket that we have to look at in the coming years. I already mentioned the global push for open science, so that is the slides connected to what I said before. Now, just to close my intervention, of course, I mentioned these 3 layers. The national layers is key. That's why we are so happy to see this national event happening today. And I understand also that the coordination in Croatia regarding open science is really taking shape with promising milestones coming in the future. So we are extremely happy about this. We believe that national coordination structure in general can be implemented in different ways depending on each country landscape. But they are key to disseminate EOSC at national level, to engage stakeholders within your country, to coordinate your activities at national level, to support national plans, national roadmaps, being for research infrastructures, being for open science, and to increase the uptake of open science in the country. So we are very happy to see this initiative happening today. I will skip this slide because I know that Volker Beckmann, also from the steering board, is going to give you more details on the monitoring side of EOSC. So my last slide, if I may, is about ongoing surveys that we are doing. It's nice to have policies, but we have to measure progress. So we have been investing together at EU level in an EOSC observatory, which is currently managed by OpenAir and Technopolis. And this observatory is working very closely with the EOSC steering board, so the group of member states and associated countries, to define questions that need to be surveyed not only once in an ad hoc basis, but really a set of key questions that need to be answered on a regular basis over the years to come. Because this will allow us really to find trends on how our policies are impacting really the research community. So there is an ongoing survey, and hopefully we get answers from all the countries by April this year. This survey has a focus not only on policies. Do you have policies for data stewards? Do you have policies for infrastructure, services, and so on? But also on practices. Practices in your country, in Croatia. And we count on this survey to populate an EOSC catalog of best practices. So I really hope for a strong contribution coming from Croatia. With this, I'd like to thank you all for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michel, and thank you for reminding us that we have to fill this survey until the 1st of April. Yeah, we're on it, don't worry. You mentioned the survey at the beginning of your speech, and maybe somebody can correct me from my colleagues, but I believe that there was a survey in Croatia and that the number of, the percent of people who had no idea about the FAIR principles was even much higher than 38%. So I believe that, you know, events like this are a perfect opportunity to spread the information not only about FAIR data but also about EOSC. So maybe we can start planning another national tripartite event for the next year or something. And also, yeah, I believe that more institutions from Croatia should join EOSC. Right now there are only 2 institutions, Srce and the Ruđer Bošković Institute, which joined recently as an observer. So yeah, okay. So our next speaker, you already know him. All of you that were in the morning, Giorgio Rossi was giving his keynote presentation. But just a few lines about Giorgio. He's a professor of physics at University of Milan. He served as a Srce chair from 2016 to 2019, and which is especially relevant for us. He coordinated the expert group who wrote the Italian National Plan for Open Science, which became effective in 2022. He's a representative of Italy in EOSC steering board, and also contributes as co-chair to the policy subgroup of EOSC. So, Giorgio, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning again to all. Thanks for allowing me to do a different surfing through a similar set of slides that were partially used this morning. So I'm here representing the voice of the steering board, and you know about the tripartite governance, you know about the ambitions of the Open Science Cloud, and of course one element is the strategic research and innovation agenda and the multi-annual plan to implement that on a timeline, which is mostly under the responsibility and the activity of the partnership of the EOSC-a Association and its task forces. But then the EOSC steering board tries to attack and to analyze the main issues concerning disruptive concepts and practices that are connected with the construction and the future operation of the EOS and that have national implications. So we know that we all wish EOSC to be a federation of the existing and planned research data infrastructure, making the ensemble operating as one seamless European research data infrastructure. And as it was mentioned in the previous presentation by the Commission, the goal is to establish soon, in the very next few years, the first operational version of the European EOSC node to which national, regional, institutional nodes can connect. And when we speak of making something operational, it means going out of the vision but trying to nail down the basic elements that are required to be produced, engineered, financed, and organized and operated and managed as an operational system requires. And these are authentication, authorization, infrastructure, permanent identifiers, interoperability, framework, rules of participation, common search engines, etc. And they must be operational, supported, and maintained, not only described in theory. And this should be achieved with the currently available instruments. And the currently available instruments are calls under the Horizon Europe, so the infra-EOSC calls, as well as procurement procedures, again, with the Horizon Europe rules. So EOSC will serve about 2 million researchers, and so to be operational with services, it's an interesting channel that, of course, can only be done by this federating concept, building on existing research data infrastructures that perform for their own communities and try to make the step ahead and to become, let's say, generalistic. Why to contribute enthusiastically to that? Well, I would say the first thing is that if you put your data sets in the EOSC, your data sets gain value. Data, science data, are the only thing, along with culture, that increase their value the more spread out are. It's not the value of the rare things, it's the value of a commonly used thing. So this should be a driver for all the scientists and all the scientific institutions to actively participate, because they will get a higher value of what they produce. Then, you know, the web of research digital objects is a way the EOSC Federation would be perceived from the outside. But as I mentioned this morning, this requires massive systematic production of fair data sets, and this cannot be done by a posteriori verification, and it requires a big technological effort and financial effort, of course, in doing fair by design methodologies and equipping laboratories to have the as automatic as possible collection of the metadata and compilation of complete fair data sets. This is again something where you get the collaboration of the researcher. The researcher may be hesitant in spending much of his time or her time in verifying existing data sets because it's a tedious and painful job for a researcher to do, but the same researcher would be very happy and collaborative to upgrade his or her own laboratory with technology that will make the data fair by design. So I think this is an important point, and I would like to stress that. And then, of course, why I do insist that we need a massive production of fair data sets for two reasons. One is to follow the rate of increase of production of science. So if we verify a posteriori, we will never follow the same rate of increase. And secondly, is because it's only if a large quality control amount of fair data sets available, then artificial intelligence tools, machine learning, prototyping, automated research protocols will be possible. So we heard about the minimum viable EOSC-a. I think these are declination of technical aspects of that, but I think Michael has well identified the goal of having that operational, and all of these things are parts of that should be ready soon to at the operational level. Of course, rules of participations are behind the whole story. There should be a minimal set, but clear enough so that the engagement by all the doers that are needed will be secured. And then, of course, and these were points addressed by the executive board, the relationship with the commercial sector is an important aspect. EOSC must be a public good, and a public good must be enforced in time, not only declared, and therefore must be robust in setting the correct rules for maximum advantage of the interaction with the commercial sector without taking risks. And again, fair data sovereignty, as I will briefly dwell on, is something that should be built in the rules of participation. And then these are, again, technical important aspects that will build in the different iterations of EOSC, machine actionable repositories, semantic interoperability, etc., and security coordination. So the steering board has addressed these 4 questions in 2022 and has called for, has structured itself with subgroups to try to help preparing the discussion on these issues for the steering board. And these have become 4 opinion papers that are published and easily available on the web. On data literacy, it's clear that there are needs to promote skills needed for doing and for exploiting the EOSC-a and for promoting and making effective the open science policies on the data. Commercial sector, we just mentioned, rules to engage commercial partners, sovereignty on fair data, rules to protect data quality and to monitor the usage of the data. And then generally monitoring open science, this was already mentioned, and it's also mentioned that will be described by Volker Beck in the afternoon. So very quickly through the contents of these results, skill and competence, of course, are needed for the digital transition. And at European level, it would be very interesting that we reach a coherent education and training system or paradigm, at least, to inspire the different national initiatives. The objective is to ensure that open science practices and skills are described, rewarded, taught, and become the new normal, as it was already said. Enable definition of standards, development of tools and services to allow researchers to find access, so to use the EOSC, and establish a sustainable and federated infrastructure enabling open sharing of the results. So skills for the researchers must be supported at all career stages. Mutual learning, awareness for fair data and data literacy, and then there were recommendations at the European, national, and institutional level, some of which are trying to develop a European framework for the fair data skills and a network of data competence centers, coordination, mutual learning, recognition, and learning paradigms. The relationship with the commercial partners, it's clear that implies opportunities and risks. The objective is to have a robust concept for effective collaboration between all sources of competencies that share the vision, that must share the vision of an open science and innovation system as a public good. Recommendations are analyzing risk benefits, review the rules of participation with respect to these aspects, exploiting all synergies, coordinate investment and discuss. Data sovereignty. Here, again, the concept is that fair data are common goods, and there is a responsibility to protect the fair data value. We said there is an increase of value of the research data if they become fair, but then you have to protect this investment you do, and to protect it through use and reuse. So a fair data set should remain robust and high quality, even through manipulation by users. And this is an important idea. And so fair data sovereignty, or sovereignty on fair data, and research security, which under a different title is coming in our discussion, have some common issues that challenge the implementation of the as open as possible, as restricted as necessary principle. We have to make it operational as well. There are recommendations, and the general idea, let me just say a few more words on that, is that the fair data space is subject to rules. It's not a freestyle usage of that. It's subject to rule. This should not reduce openness unless necessary, and must protect value of use and reuse. And so this is a concept that requires technical and legal frameworks impacting the data, their usage condition, and their effective fruition as a common good. We, the steering board, believe that sovereignty on fair research data can be pursued by attributing to the EOSC and to the participating data providers the responsibility to protect the value of the fair data sets and related services throughout the whole life cycle of the data exploitation. Monitoring open science will be discussed later. There is an opinion paper that will be mentioned. But part of monitoring, just a simple extract from 2021 data published by the EOSC Observatory on the policies on open science, so commitment on adoption and enforcement of open science and EOSC-related policies is progressing in member states and associate countries. You see the countries that do that, and those who had, as of 2021, already financial strategies were fewer at that time. Now will have to be updated. Financial strategies in place, you see a few countries. In progress, you see a few more. In planning, you see a few more. Now, this was 2022. Now the subgroup policy is planning to do more work and in 2023, whilst developing these opinion papers are working documents, so open documents that need to be refined and completed as evidence of such need comes up. But also we would like to attack two other points. One is the data productivity. It refers to what I said before, how quickly and how we can support increasing productivity to reach the necessary volume of fair data sets and services, and digitalization of research in general. Again, I think the concept is clear, and this should be linked with the digital agenda of the European Union, and that most member states are implementing as a more general issue. In doing these studies, the steering board has the possibility, and in fact there are decisions pending, to do external collaboration, so to have interfaces. One will be with Srce, so there will be something that I would like to call a joint coherence work group, but this is just my proposal, or a table of discussion addressing together the key contributions that directly concern the research infrastructure, can be implemented by the research infrastructure. I think the research infrastructures are one of the playgrounds where it's more easy to reach results in a timely manner. Certainly we will continue to have a dialogue with the EIRG, because it's important also that full evidence of the infrastructure needs of EOSC is made clear. EOSC for the moment stays over something that is given for granted, but is not granted. Is big investments done mostly at national levels, the infrastructure that will support what volume of activity of EOSC. So we have to understand, to work for augmenting the volume of activity, but we have to understand what numbers we're talking about, because that is reflected on needs that are reflected again on national contributions and institutional contributions. And then of course the EOSC Association the dialogue with the EOSC Association and their task forces is needed on a number of issues, in particular rules of participation and fair data quality, and the commercial sector. Now, we have already mentioned this morning the richness of the data spaces. It was mentioned by Michael as well, and the importance that the EOSC will be understood as an overarching data space for research. Research can expand, of course, in all of these other domains, and everything should be built in a coherent enough manner that independently of the protection level that some sectorial data space may wish to apply, the researchers may be able to acquire useful information for their purposes. And so what I said is the agenda of the steering board. This number of issues and opinion papers and etc. It's all converged in trying to figure out what would be the post-2027 best configuration for the EOSC, because again, these are not just intellectual exercises, is trying to better understand elements that will become crucial for operation. And so I'm just proposing what is the state of play of the discussion at the tripartite level. So what model organization for what EOSC functions after 2027? Or conversely, as it was suggested recently by Michael, what EOSC functions might be fulfilled by what organization? And we have seen a number of EOSC functions. They are not all homogeneous, and I took the freedom to put them in two boxes. One is operationalize EOSC, so the thing that must work sometime before 2027, and that is deploying and operate the central node, which is, in the language of the Srce, the core, the exchange, and the federation. Operate and expand the EOSC federation. Continuous update with advanced solutions, the interoperability services. Linking to the European data spaces as they come online, so to say. More monitoring productivity and failures or pitfalls. I'm over time. It's just one more slide.
Stay to the microphone.
One more slide. Oh, I stay swimming. I'm sorry. And that is one box. Operationalize EOSC. Then continuous develop EOSC. This is more research and development work. Prototyping and testing upgrades of the core and exchange. Exploring novel services and methods. Develop fair by design protocols and technology. Research on artificial intelligence, automatic research workflows. Tools enabling digitalization of research as soon as EOSC will start operating on big volume of fair data sets. Expand contents, objectives of open science policy. So these are two blocks that have specific requirements that fit differently with the instruments that we had. Put in one of the early slides. We have grants and we have procurement. This is what the current tripartite configuration has up to 2027. The grants under a framework program support and reward the best effort by the grantees and are not suitable as such to guarantee operational services. You are rewarded if you have an infra EOSC to do your best effort to develop some concept, to have some knowledge that remains with you, and it cannot be used as a service, as an operational service. With the grants, of course, you mobilize the research community and take advantage of all the competencies that are present in the European Union plus the associated countries. You develop novel concepts with high potential for future implementation. And the grants are typically managed by the Commission under a framework program, but could be managed by the partnership, or tripartite partnership, or directly by member states and associate countries with, under the national programs or combinations of them. Procurement is the other tool, existing tool as of today, and the procurer is the Commission. But the Commission is doing that right at this time for simple, the first overlay of middleware building block of the minimum viable EOSC, but procurement by the Commission is a sort of creative procurement because it's not for something that is of own usage, as typically when you procure something is something that you own and you use for your internal needs, whilst this is procuring something for the community. Procurement rules put some strain for the effective participation of public research organizations. The ESO constraints and other things may have slowed down in this first exercise the effective participation of public research organization, which might jeopardize or anyhow requires attention to defend the public good of the EOSC. So procurement is managed now by the EC, but it could be managed by specialized governments with procurement powers of the future. And I think this is where we are, so it's an important debate. Work is in progress. The tripartite events are instrumental to align our understanding and initiatives. And I would also say that active participation to the steering board and its subgroups is very much needed, because the complexity of the issues is there. The complexity of Europe is what we all enjoy and suffer at the same time. So we have to work together to reach results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giorgio, for this very detailed insight into the plans. And I invite our next speaker, Sarah Jones, EOSC Engagement Manager at the JANT. She now sits on the EOSC Association Board of Directors, and she will explain a little bit about EOSC Association. And Sarah, if you want to move, you have the microphone here.
I brought my laptop up so I can see the slides, so it should be fine as long as I keep you in sync with what I see here.
Perfect. And I also ask to keep with time. We are a little bit delayed, but if you want to have some coffee, then please speed up.
Yes. No, I'll be very quick because we've already had useful introductions. So what I'll cover today is a bit about the EOSC Association, which is part of that tripartite governance, and our role in the Horizon Europe co-programmed EOSC partnership. So the EOSC Association is very much the voice of the community. We're a membership organisation. We have general assemblies every year where we bring all our members together, and the next one is going to be in May. And the purpose of EOSC Association is threefold. We have a partnership agreement with the European Commission, and our role is to provide the single voice of advocacy of all that community, the various stakeholders, to promote the alignment with the European Union research policy, and also to enable seamless access to data through interoperable services. Now that last one, we're not operating those services, they're done through various projects, but we're there to try and help ensure that EOSC functions on a technical level. We have a number of members within the association. We have full members, so 168 full members, and also observers. And observers are people who maybe come from different geographical space, like Canada, or people who don't want to be full members. And you can see the breakdown of different stakeholders here. We have a lot of research performing organizations, as well as service providers and research funders. So we're trying to represent all of those different groups. In terms of Croatia, you have Srce as the mandated organization. Mandated organizations within EOSC are there to represent the national views. So they're nominated by the ministry to be that national voice. You also have other members, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Ruda Boskic Institute. But it would be good to have more members from Croatia as well. And within Croatia, you have a number of people who are involved in the steering board, Ivan, and also task forces, and also projects as well. So there's a good engagement in EOSC already. Within those task forces, we have 13 task forces within EOSC Association, and that's to try and pool the knowledge from the community around specific topics like persistent identifiers or technical interoperability. In terms of Croatia, you have people in, I think, 4 of those task forces. Again, as you grow members or you want to get more involved, it would be good to see you involved in more of those task forces too. The task forces deliver different outputs, and all of those are available on Zenodo, which is a repository under a collection for EOSC Association. So do go and look at those outputs and provide feedback or reuse them in your own national context. To give a bit of context about the Horizon Europe co-programmed partnership, this was launched in June 2021, and it's a partnership between the European Commission and EOSC Association, and it's a huge investment of money, 1 billion euros committed. And the Srce, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, is the key document, really, that we put together collectively between the EC and EOSC Association. It sets the agenda, and you'll have seen these 3 priorities. I don't know if that laser works. Yes. You'll have seen these 3 priorities come up in different talks. These are the objectives of what we're trying to achieve within EOSC. We also have what we call a multi-annual roadmap, and that's effectively a work program, or, well, work programs used in a different sense, but it's a work plan, maybe let's say, about what activity needs to happen over different phases of time. At the moment, we're planning the 2025 to 2027 period, and we have a consultation open for all of the members and observers of EOSC Association. So feedback on that document and pass that feedback on to Srce so they can put it into the consultation. It closes on 7th of April from recollection. We have a memorandum of understanding. That's like the partnership agreement, the document that defines what the Commission puts into EOSC, what EOSC Association puts in. And the objectives of that is, to co-define the Srce and the different KPIs. The European Commission's putting in 490 million, and we also do in-kind contributions through EOSC Association members. And the commitment of the EC here is to take our advice when defining the work programme. And this next slide really explains how this process works. So the EOSC Association will consult with its task forces and its members to define the multi-annual roadmap. That's fed into the EC to give them ideas about what to put into the work programme. That then leads into feeding, funding different projects and building EOSC. So kind of on a, political governance level, this is how those steps fit together. As I mentioned, EOSC Association isn't directly implementing EOSC. We're not running all those technical projects. There are lots of projects run by various stakeholders. This is like a big logo slide of all the projects, if you want to know the names. I think, actually, it's not on this slide, but on the next slide, we have GraspOS. That's one that you're involved in, is it? Or the CraftAway? CraftAway is one that Srce is involved in. Sorry? Oh, EOSC Future as well. Yes, EOSC Future is the big investment. For all those projects, what we've been doing at EOSC Association is trying to coordinate across them. So we have some co-branding guidelines. That's why the logos look similar. We also have what we call a vademecum, which is a handbook for running the projects, so that when the projects are doing similar work, we try and get them working together. We don't have duplication of effort. And we have a number of kind of bodies to try and help with that. So a technology board, a communication and stakeholder group. And we bring all those projects together in different meetings as well. We held a first kind of kick-off meeting for all these projects, so they got to know each other. We have the next meeting on the 15th and 16th of June. Another aspect I wanted to pick up on is the monitoring and reporting, because this is one of the key aspects of the Memorandum of Understanding we have with the European Commission. As I mentioned before, the EC is putting in 490 million, and the in-kind contributions to kind of match that from the EOSC Association and its members are 500 million. And the way we demonstrate that is through monitoring. So we ask our members, what are your activities? What's the value of those activities? And that's how we kind of assess the in-kind contributions. So we've done what we call the AAP survey. Oh God, what does AAP stand for? Additional activities. And we've done 3 of those surveys so far. The first one was in 2021, and then the next 2, what you can see demonstrated here is that across the community is a huge number of full-time equivalents and a huge number of staff being employed on EOSC related activities, and a huge investment. So 312 million in 2022, nearly 384 million in 2023. So we're, very much doing that matched funding. We're also doing surveys around the KPIs. This is the other part of the monitoring framework. And here you can see the KPIs that are in our document that we need to assess, and also an example of how we assess those. So what kind of information we're gathering in. I think one thing to say here is that it just means many more surveys for the countries and for the members of EOSC, but it demonstrates all the work that's going on. The final point I wanted to touch on is the tripartite collaboration. This has been mentioned already, so I think you should probably understand the concept. But EOSC is a partnership between EOSC Association and the European Commission, and we have an MOU together. But obviously we need to bring in the member states and associated countries to help with the steering, and that's why it's 3 parties, tripartite. So there's also a kind of steering board, which Ivan and Giorgio are involved in, to feed into that governance as well. And this is also why we're running these tripartite events, to work within the country, bring those three stakeholders together. We've done similar events in many other countries, 16 countries in total, reaching 1,195 participants. And I think it's really important because it's about raising awareness of EOSC, the value to you as researchers or other service providers, but also to get that dialogue started on a national level. You know, where are we at in Croatia? What are the gaps? What do you need to be done still, and how can the different stakeholders help you? And also, what do those stakeholders need from the EC or from EOSC Association or others? So I think it's really important to have these events for that dialogue. And then the last slide, I hope, is touching on this post-2027 structures of EOSC, which has been alluded to by others presenters as well. This is something we're thinking about. Where do we need to go with EOSC? What are the appropriate governance structures? What role do different parties need to play? You know, the EC's already invested a lot. The member states make a lot of investments as well. How do we bring those together? How is it co-financed? What are the relative contributions in terms of the governance? Who needs what kind of say? And what kind of structure is relevant based on that? And how do we operate EOSC? You know, do we continue going through projects, or do we do procurements? There's lots of open questions, and that's what this whole discussion is to try and figure out. So today, I haven't put that up for you yet. So this is perfect timing of our event for you to also feed in your views and help shape the future of EOSC. And that was the last slide. Hopefully I've caught up time a little bit.
Thank you very much.
You.
Right on time, yes. Please.
So you mentioned several service.
Yes, yeah.
There, so I'm sure you are making data available somewhere from this service. But my question actually is also for other speakers who mentioned common European data spaces. And I'm wondering how this kind of data, so survey data, are fitting in any of these
those
spaces, because I'm coming from Croatian social science data archives.
So in terms of the survey data that Giorgio mentioned, the steering board's data, that's within the EOSC Observatory. So that's shared there. I think they maybe have it on Zenodo as well. The data from the different EOSC surveys, I think we have in Zenodo, but I would check that with Uta and others. But then what you're talking about, the data spaces, they're really about research data rather than data about, you know, how research is supported in different countries. So within the data spaces, it would be your survey data, like social science survey data, and whatever other, you know, like medical surveys that have been done. So the content that we gather about the status in individual countries isn't shared via any kind of thematic data space, but I mean, it could be. I don't know if anyone else wants to reflect on that. Ivan, no?
Well, it will take too much time. We can discuss it later on, I think. Yep. I will reflect something on the survey in my speech.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, once more. And now, our last speaker in this first session, Ivan. We began with Ivan and we will end the session with Ivan, so... No. Okay. No. It's you.
Okay, I didn't know that it's me, but I'm glad that I will skip 55% of my slides because Giorgio, Sarah, Michael already covered it. I will do instead one explanation that is not done by Slaven or me at the beginning. This tripartite event is in parallel with National Days of E-Infrastructure National Conference in Croatia that we are organizing. And parallel to this session, we are having thematic blocks that are really open science related. It's thematic blocks on how we build Croatian Research Information System, CRIS. And this is one of the tools that I am advocating for the long time in Europe. Don't use survey every time, because we all hate survey. If you want to monitor something, then please connect to the real source of information. These are the Srce system. And then you can figure out, and these are the relevant databases and registries that hold the information about research information system in every country in Europe. If you send me survey and say, Ivan, fill it, then I will probably fill it with my mind, and George with his mind, etc., etc. So this is one of the plans that I think that in Europe we should build up, and this is pan-European monitoring infrastructure that will help us to monitor at least some of the basic elements of the research or European research area or European higher education area, etc., etc. So I'm advocating, I will advocate in steering board and some other plenum that I am very active, basically to connect such evidence system on a national base, like it's done in national statistical infrastructure across the Europe. So that's probably, Mariana, also some answer to your question about survey, not where the survey data are. It should be open. So I will skip. I will skip the first slide about EOSC. You already figure out what the EOSC is. Because I'm engineer, I like to set things very engineering. So in my perspective, I like to think about this EOSC through three key aspects. First one is open science and fair data. The second one is federation of existing infrastructure and planned infrastructure. And the third one is basically cooperation among disciplines and countries. That's why we are here today in Croatia and having this tripartite event to cooperate and to give our voice to jointly speak or raise our voices with the other friends and colleagues from other member state associated countries. About the EOSC association, I will not reflect, it's Sara cover topic, just to say that it's established in July 2020, but basically it all starts with the vision of 2016 or even earlier with the ERG first paper, etc., etc. And it was a journey. It was a journey that ended up in establishing an association. I don't know, did you notice the sign, the logo of HR-OOZ, our national e-infrastructure that Srce just built? We made this logo long before this. They did it, so we will see. We will see about these copyright issues. No, I was joking on the EOSC meetings because they pick up the right logo. It's really now I have to reflect to Karel Lubi, president of the EOSC association. It's really yin-yang model. It's e-infrastructure and data infrastructure. They have to be together. If you have data, you have to need resources, infrastructure that George also mentioned this morning. You need to have machines, computers, supercomputers, etc., to process this data, to visualize data. On the other hand, if these machines doesn't have data, they are useless. So our yin-yang is basically, I will speak later on about data infrastructure initiative, but HR-OOZ is a conference about, and it's about e-infrastructure and data infrastructure just fit into our definition, Srce definition of e-infrastructure model that it should be. Okay, the purpose of EOSC association members, it was covered by Sara, and this is the important part. I would like to, that we in Croatia raise our voice. You know, we are different than the guys in Netherlands or in Sweden, because it is very important that the structure of pan-European country reflects south, north, east, west, poor countries, rich countries. Why membership in Croatia is so low, why the membership fee is so high. This is where we should discuss this issue. Why should we go for the full membership of all Croatian institutions when all Croatian institutions will come to ministry and ask, give me money for membership? Why? Because the Croatian research system is currently financed as a state financed. There is no much private financing in our research. So perhaps this is not the same situation as in the rich country of the north. Perhaps we see membership issue differently from them. And this is the plan where we should discuss openly. Why should we need 10 institutions that will come to Hrvatska and ask 10 times membership fee, instead going all through the mandated organization? So perhaps for Croatia it doesn't work to build the membership of the EOSC association if we want to do it efficiently. In that case, the mandated organization have to behave something different. This is just time-provoking discussion in the afternoon session. Okay, these are EOSC association is of course very transparent organization. They have all it publicized on the web. Articles of association defining that each state country have one mandated organization. Srce is appointed by Ministry of Science. Ruđer became observer recently, and then Ruđer asked for membership fee from Ministry of Science to cover, and now we are covering 2 memberships for the same association. This is nice. Okay, the roles and responsibilities of mandated organizations are twofold. So we have, of course, we are responsible to our constituency first, and then we are responsible to the joint company, to the joint effort in Europe. This is the European way of doing, which we all like. I personally enjoy this, not the US way, not the, I don't know, some other way, but European style is really something that is unique, and it includes all 3 layers from institution, national to pan-European. It's really some kind, I see it as a bottom-up, top-down initiative, but in this way, it's really bottom-up initiative. So let's see what are mandated organization Srce roles and responsibility toward our fatherhood or EOSC association is basically to coordinate the view, to organize similar events like this one. Giorgio show opinion papers. I forward this opinion paper. If you are the member of Council of EOSC, then you can remember opinion paper to the community, collect feedbacks, and then translate this feedback to the EOSC association. Consult the members of EOSC association. Task forces, Sara showed that we are involved in 4 task forces. Usually it's the guys and girls from Srce and Ruđer Bošković Institute, which are traditionally involved there, but we should do much more to stimulate this community. As I said, the size of the wave that we will collectively produce is the kinetic energy of each of us. So basically it's the sum. We should be involved and don't be afraid. I know Croatians are not afraid of speaking openly too, and I am sure other colleagues from Europe also. And there is a small list towards European Commission and a huge list towards my own constituency. And this is good. This is good because we have to communicate with the community, and the community sometimes, as Giorgio said, is not interested in this policy or other issues, but sometimes we have to sit together and devote our times to this because it's very important. It's long term. It's a strategic research and innovation activities, additional activity plan, etc. It's long term that will dictate how we will behave next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in work program of Horizon Europe, or even after 2027. So, sometimes researchers have to think about the future, not just of its own research field, but more largely in an open science way. Okay, and then there are some other things that mandated organization will do, and Srce is of course doing this brilliantly. I think we all agree. We will skip this. We have to organize more. No, but the community is doing great, I think. It's not just Srce, of course. Srce is one of the partners, and we are also having this for a history of Srce. We are building community joint infrastructure. We are building something that we have to listen to the community, follow the trends of technology, but also follow the implementation trends in science, higher education in Croatia. And this is how all central organizations, so-called central organizations should do. We are building, we are brokerage, we are et cetera, et cetera. And of course, helping ministry in defining the policy strategies etc., in different European area or European research area, plenum, etc. So this is our main task, jointly with our ministry and with the community, to formulate how Croatian part of European research area should be. Okay, and in Croatia we are of course very advanced. We are more advanced than in Europe. We like to start things that predict the future. So basically European Commission start these 5B, EOSC, infra-EOSC 5B projects, which are not mentioned here, before the EOSC association established. And this was one of the tools that the EC very successfully implemented, preparing all Europe to the EOSC era. Ruđer Bošković Institute and Srce were part of NIFOS project, and we initiated, when we build our NIFOS work of program, that NIFOS should be a national infrastructure of national initiative of open science. That's the abbreviation. And basically we have this philosophy that in each country we should have initiative, National Open Science Cloud initiative similar to the EOSC, and that this should be in a somehow connected way with the European Open Science Cloud. As a result of that, Croatia was the first country in this region to initiate Croatian Open Science Cloud initiative called EOSC-a. And for you that are not Croatian speaking person, this is the similar abbreviation to our major infrastructure, EOSC-a. And that's how we build the yin-yang model. Okay, the vision of our initiative was very similar to the initiative of European Open Science, but on the taking the task and activity that we should done on a national level, promoting this fair principle of data, promoting open science. But this is not the first time that we in Croatia start doing this. The history of open access, the history of open science initiative in Croatia is very, very traditional, 20-25 years long, coming from the community, coming from the different initiative from our institutions, Ruđer Bošković, Filozofski, Srce, etc., etc. So this is not something that started with like EOSC. This is the evolutionary process that took us to the position where we should make a step forward. And this is not about history, but about future. So I will skip this one. So we celebrate this with 21 members, and we follow the second principle: use existing, and then build on this the future. So we use in structuring this consortium or initiative, we use the existing initiative that were already connected to European research infrastructure, that were already in the open science area of business. All Croatian public universities are here. All coordination of Croatia formally approved ERICs are here. Open Air, National Open Access Node is here. NGI, RDA, National Node also represent here through the institution. And this is basically all relevant stakeholders in Croatia that have something to do to open science. And we are very open, and after the initial period of 19, I think 2 other or 3 other institutions joined the initiative. We set the short-term objective. Let's start initiative and then shut down and then start something new. And our goal was that this year we shut down the initiative, and I think that we will do it, because the main objectives are realized. To realize it, we opened 2 task forces, create 2 task forces with very specific actions and objectives. So let's go through it. Task force for drafting the proposal of the national plan and policies for open science. With the 3 tasks, basically, Hrvoje mentioned, I think, that at the same time we have a new law on science and higher education activities in Croatia, and the first small task of this group was to create the paragraph for this new law. It is done. The second, the big one, or the main target, was the proposal of National Open Science Plan, and the draft is very, very final stage. The draft is sent to the council have to approve it and then forward to the ministry, and then the ministry will have something to do with it. And the third one is basically to have these templates for the national open science policies. Institutional open science policies, sorry. So in each of these institutions from the initiative, well, we all have to build our institutional open science policy, and I think that after we approve national, that each institution will accept this one or similar institutional template. And we are hoping that we will move from currently, I think, 2 institutions in Croatia, University of Rijeka and University of Zadar, having institutional policy. We will move that all institutions, basic institutions, have this institutional policy. I see in the future of European Commission calls that prerequest for having the call will be, do you have an institutional policy? No, please make one and then we will give you money. Something like that, Michael, Michelle, whatever. Okay, and then the task force for defining the structure and principle, this was easier than the first one. And this was the goal to set organizational and management model of after initiative clauses, how we should behave, how we should set something that is NOSC or Open Science Cloud, HROOZ, how HROOZ will live together, establishment of service catalog as subset of European EOSC service catalog. We did this in NIFOS, so we start doing this. We set the criteria, and this is done also, criteria for onboarding services in our catalog, because we believe that, okay, we will fill all these services to the European Open Science Catalog, but it is not architectural design how European Open Science Catalog should be. In my opinion, it should be this federation or similar, because for the last 20 years, I was in the GEANT, one of these infrastructure, and we have also a European way of building pan-European services, and this is the federation, and I like federations. Mentioned by Sarah, AI Federation, European AI Federation is a member of EduGain, for example, of Global, but inside this is a federation of AI Federation, one of which is coordinated by Srce AI EduHR. Very, very nice abbreviation. So Task Force 2 already done, all the goals are fulfilled. This one is, I think, waiting, and this one is very important. We like that our services are part of CRIS system, and we will fill all our services to our national RIS system, and this is the way how we should do it on a European scale. And then, if you have a project, if you have service in our national information system, CRIS system, that is built by Srce and Ruđer Bošković Institute also, then all our services will look for the information in this system, not asking for information around. These are the relevant sources of information. At the end, if we all in Europe build such a system with the relevance, then we will improve the quality of data. Then we will improve the security, etc., etc. Okay, and now what is your duty, you and Srce? How you will stimulate all this happen? How you stimulate that these voices are listened by Sara, Giorgio, Karel and others. Well, I'm on the steering board meetings, I'm on the General Assembly of EOSC Association. There are lots of events over there, and a lot of us want to say something, but we have to figure out what are the key messages from Croatian community that we want to take out to the Commission and say, okay, these are the key messages, and I'm gladly that these messages are in parallel with Italian or Greece or Sweden. In some discussion we will not agree, but we are the sum of individuals, so we will move on. We have HROOZ or initiative, National Open Science Cloud Initiative dissemination channels. We have mailing list, we have meetings. We will use, as explained in Srce, we started a program from community, program za zajednicu, which is basically very similar to ERG cafes or something. Every month we pick up the topic, we as a community meet up and discuss, no matter what. So discussion about open science is very important, and discussion about open science is happening in all these fora, in all ERICs, in CESDA, in Clarin, Croatia, in operas, etc., etc. So we are all collectively discussing this. There is no central place where we should discuss, and I'm not a person who will take open science FR data and I'm the owner of it. It's impossible. So at least what we have to do is basically behave fair, and this means interoperate between each other. And the list of topics is non-exclusive. I think that we should on top of this, not just put the topics, that are of interest for European Commission and EOSC, but also for national. Okay, I'm finishing. Thank you. I'm on time.
Thank you very much. I know that you are all waiting for coffee, so since we're a bit late, apologize for this because we had some technical difficulties at the beginning. 10 minutes break. Is that okay with you? So grab a coffee and then we'll be back for another session. Thank you.